Hello patrons, and eventually YouTube, but for a start this is going to be a video only for Patreon. We'll eventually release it on YouTube for the rest of the population to enjoy. Now Christmas has been great, but also incredibly busy. A lot of stuff to do with family, a lot of people to visit, talk to, hang out with, so I haven't really had time to do much here. So I'm going to record this live. No cuts. We'll see how it goes, and we'll get straight into the questions. So, let's see, how exposed am I? That's alright. We're going to start with XL's question. So, top 3 favourite CSGO series of all time. Yeah, these are going to be really personal. I took some from a variety of different periods, otherwise I could have just picked 3 from the same one, honestly. But let's start. Envious versus DSM. Envious versus TSM at DreamHack Open London. Now, this was an event which was quite near and dear to me. Now, I got it confused with another one when I looked up this series specifically. But this event was huge. Envious had just finished second at the major before it, which kind of made me sad. I was kind of like, oh, Fnatic are too good. Who can beat Fnatic? And then they won this, and I was like, hold on. Envious can still win stuff. You know, back then I was still watching the game purely as a fan. Had no real analytical skin in the game, per se. I just wanted my favourite team and the favourite players to win, which was QnA at the time. And so winning this event was huge. And this event also was iconic. The grand final had the TSM Happy Ace clip, which was what really cemented this series as my favourite. It also had some crazy clips from QnA, so an awesome time to be a French CSGO fan, but also just a really awesome event with a great grand final. The next one I have to list is Astralis versus VP at the Atlanta E-League Major Final. So much history, I think, is involved in like the precursor to this event, because Device, Dupree and Zipnix have been together forever. They'd had so many issues, so many woes, and they'd been really just elite, but never the best team. So it was kind of weird. They were like kind of the gatekeepers of the elite teams. Like, you know how some teams act like the gatekeeper to the tier 1 scene? Like, yeah, they were the gatekeepers to basically being a title-winning side. You had to be able to beat them. And this series was finally the time they climbed the mountain, you know, really got on top. It was an absolutely bonkers series. Every map was pretty close. Kirby put up an insanely great performance, and Device kind of choked. So kind of like the storyline repeated itself, but for once, the team was able to pull through anyway. Device would have been the grand final. Oh, sorry. Device would have been the MVP of this major had he not played so poorly in the final. Going into the final, he was the highest rated by far, in terms of just pure rating. He played awesomely in the quarters and the semis. If he hadn't been bad in the grand final, just okay. If he'd just been okay, like a 1.05 rated player, like that sort of level, like we're talking bang on average, just done his job at bare minimum, he probably wins MVP of this event. Unfortunately, he was terrible, so he didn't. But still, it was an awesome event, an absolutely nuts final. The crowd was great. You know, NA crowds, quite loud and boisterous and obnoxious, which is good. It's what you want. That, you know, American noise. It actually works in this context. So, really cool to see those guys finally win a major. An absolutely nuts series. But yeah, a little piece of history that really stuck with me. Now finally, if you've ever watched any Counter-Strike, you probably know that this had to be one of the 3. Cloud9 versus FaZe at the Boston Major. I mean, it might be the most iconic grand final ever at this point, with the hype of the crowd, the overtime, you know, the Stewie clip, like everything. It's absolutely bananas, just bonkers. Like, turn up to 11 in this event. The crowd was awesome because, you know, they actually had a hometown team to cheer for, which is completely out of character for an NA side to actually make the final of something, especially a major. So the NA crowd were going nuts. It really was an awesome event, and this best of 3, I stayed up God knows how late watching it. It's ended up lasting quite a while. I think it started late as well, but man, C9 massive underdogs going in. The fact they came out with the major was incredible. They weren't even expected to probably make it past quarterfinals, in my estimation. Thinking back on it, you know, still pretty much just a fanboy at this point, so maybe that was too much of a fan's perspective, but still, thinking about that team, like Stewie, Tarek, Skadoodle, this isn't a major winning shot. Whatever. Nuts game. Awesome moment, and yeah. What a series. I think everyone should have that in their top 3. Alright, now we come to the Zelinka show. Now, Zelinka's got quite a few questions as always, and I'm going to be answering them in different levels of detail. So the first one is, it's a long one, I've got to do some essay reading. Is the fact that Vitality have been playing surprisingly well over the last couple of weeks only caused by the rumoured changes, and is it likely that the Time FaZe won that one tournament, or is it like the Time FaZe won that... Okay, it's a bit... Grammar and punctuation, please, because, Jesus, reading out loud, it makes it sound confusing, but basically, is this a honeymoon run, or like the opposite of it, like, you know, just a run where no one cares, it's about to be over, you're about to move on, just play loose, play free, and you play better. And then he asks, just at the end, are Vitality making a mistake with the changes? So first I'm going to answer that point. No. I don't think it's a mistake. I think next year the field gets stronger. I don't see their team significantly improving in terms of Kyojin and Shock's performances specifically. So I think those are the right players to remove. It's the right change to make. The biggest loss, I think, from their changes is losing Xtaz and his, you know, chemistry with Apex and the way the two have, like, you know, fine-tuned the system versus the actual calling in game and the balance of that, which is always basically the coach IGL's role. You know, the coach is to help the IGL design the perfect system and then to make those suggestions, make those points and how to run it in the game. Then, you know, outside the game, the coach has a lot of responsibility. Inside the game, it's IGL's, and it's about balancing your two roles relative to each other, and they had great chemistry. Maybe Zonic doesn't have that with Apex. Honestly, in a year's time, if this team doesn't work immediately with Apex calling, I'm assuming Apex is going to be calling still, we'll likely see Megas calling. I think that's the future of this side should things not work out. But I think they will. About the run of form, though. Yes, it is something a bit fake, a bit plastic. Not something you can really expect to consistently do. A lot of this team's success in general was predicated on the idea that you had three players who had to be decent. ZywOo to be a god, and then hopefully Kyojin doesn't hold you back. That's just... For how long can you realistically expect Shox and Apex and Misuta to play at just above average? At some point someone has to dip, especially with the way they play prior. The way they usually end up playing is one of them dips below the average line and they end up losing that close series in the quarters or semis. ZywOo needed more of a support system that made sense. You know, bring in some guys who can just be solid, like Megas, Dupree, and maybe we unlock Misuta for the future. Maybe it allows Apex to go back to being the stupidly high impact that he was as a hard entry way back in the old school Counter-Strike days. Something had to change to make the team make more sense. Rather than having three kind of good players, to have two excellent players, one kind of good player. That makes way more sense in terms of how the team should work. And that's what I think they've aiming for. By bringing in these guys who can be good, who can be solid, who know how to play Counter-Strike properly. Kyojin. It's an interesting idea, but yeah, this run definitely wasn't replicable unless you kept them in a continual state of like not knowing whether they're being cut or not or something like that, but that's just cruel. So yeah, right moves, not recreatable. Next question, rank the top 5 beers. I just kind of put 5 beers I could think of. It's not that I don't drink a lot of beer in the past. It's just that I very often just have, like, I'll just drink ale. I like ale. I'll drink an IPA, an APA, you know, any of the ales. I like a lager. I'll have a lager sometimes. Like, it's not really... I'm not religiously attached to like specific beers, but I just brought up some ones that I could remember. So at 5, I have St. Peter's Cream Stout. I remember the bottle shape, not the name. Kind of the issue. But it's a cream stout. First had it in Sweden, actually. Just buying up every random beer for a... Well, I was going to say a party, but it was just me and some friends getting pissed. And that one was delicious. I've had it a few times since. Absolutely great. But again, never remember the name. Only the bottle shape. Number 4, Innocent Guns Mango IPA. Actually really nice. I don't like most flavoured ales or most flavoured drinks because they usually taste really sour and kind of grim. This one's delicious. Innocent Gun generally make good beers, and that's one of my favourites. Guinness West Indies Porter, specifically. So Guinness, if you don't understand how that works, West Indies Porter's the stuff they brew in the West Indies and then bring over. I generally recommend you don't drink any Guinness that's not brewed. No, I recommend you don't drink any Guinness brewed in the UK. The stuff brewed in Ireland, then imported, yes. The stuff brewed in the West Indies and brought over, yes. The English stuff tastes gross. I don't know why. I don't know what we're doing wrong in this country to have water turn into beer so grim. But the Irish stuff's good, and the West Indies stuff is the best one, I think. Love the flavour. My number 2 beer is Erdinger Weissbier. I'm really a big fan of Weissbier, and the Erdinger one's just kind of the one was go-to, you know. Just drink a lot of it. Used to drink a lot more of it back when it was served in Meltdown bars. If you know about Meltdown, you're probably French. They're gaming bars. They do cocktails, they do beers, and they used to have Erdinger on tap. And I used to drink 4 or 5 pints of that every time I go out to one of those places. Love that beer. And number 1, Brewdog Punk IPA. It was the IPA that really started my love for ale. Way, way back when I started drinking that. It's a nice IPA. It's a good beer. Not really much to add to that. Alright, rank the top 5 European countries however you want. Alright, however I want. So, all this is going to be completely arbitrary. Number 5, Germany. Should be higher, but the 20th century happened. Since then, they have a good influence on esports. They're generally good at stuff. Yeah, fine. Number 5. They were pretty good at stuff pre-20th century as well. It's just, number 4, the UK/England. So late bloomers. Because for a while it's just some island full of angry gingers. But eventually became a real country. Had a massive empire. But has been a bit overrated. When you're an island nation, it's quite easy to just suck yourself off and go, we're great at war. And realistically, you're just an island. You've got a free wall that no one can literally break down. They have to slowly make their way across and then just get shot by arrows. It's a pretty overpowered strategy to just be on an island, which is why the UK overrates itself. But still, plenty of useful influences. Basically made the Industrial Revolution happen. A lot of things to say that are good for the UK/England. Just wanted to point out why they overrate themselves. Number 3, Russia. Pretty self-explanatory. All that culture, all that history, the size of the nation, the fact that they have made most of Eastern Europe its bitch. Self-explanatory. Also, they're quite important in esports, and that's actually factors into all this. Moving on to number 2, quite importantly, Sweden. So, if we go back far enough, we got, they gave the Catholics the Protestant D, they were Vikings, a lot of cool stuff. More recently, again, one of those countries that's gotten overrated, mostly by the American news media. It's not actually that great, but really influential in esports, a lot of nerds, a lot of metalheads. I can't complain. Number 1, France, obviously, still number 1 in military culture, culinary culture, military victories, statistically, and CSGO analysts. Hugely influential in terms of art and all that other crap. Pretty easy. Laggit. If you were a GM for an NA... This is why I don't record stuff in one shot. Laggit says, if you were a GM for an NA org, for example EG, how would you build that roster? Now, all of this has kind of been overshadowed by a bunch of rumours that happened between my first attempt at recording this video and this one. But here we go. I'm assuming the Liquid guys who we know of, Liquid guys, aren't going to be available. So no NAF, no Elige, which is basically the best 2 riflers in NA. So the 5 I've come up with is... This sounds kind of retarded. Not really. It's a bit weird. The team I came up with. Stewie, Automatic, Breezy, Fang, and Floppy. Now, yeah, it does mean Tim has come to his senses and gone, hey, CSGO's still good, and you can still make money. Let's go play a better game. I think it's almost confirmed he has returned to CSGO. I don't pay enough attention to the rumours. And yes, this team, just to throw it out there, the roles are a bit weird. Automatic will be our AWPer, in the same way he was kind of like an AWPer for a long time on C9. Yeah, like post-Skadoodle. It's a bit weird. But basically this team's going to rely on pure rifle power. So we've got Fang, Floppy, Breezy, Stewie to a lesser extent, who are all pretty bonkers on the rifles, play their roles really well. Fang is a guy who just slots in, does his job, and does it brilliantly. Breezy's explosive when he's good. Floppy can be a hugely impactful, like, second player. Always the off player. Like, he's not going to be taking a lot of contact, in my experience from watching him, but he's going to make huge plays outside of that, like kind of in a Cold Zero sense. Stu to play roles, Automatic to play roles / AWP. There's kind of a lot of guys here who can do the role stuff. Like, it's not actually that wild to imagine this team working. More importantly, though, we do have a coach, and that's one thing I need to bring up. The coach is going to be Zeus. Yeah, he's a good coach. I think he can make this team work. The problem is that to build just an NA team, because I don't want to use European imports, because European imports makes it kind of easy. It's like, look at the free agents that are available in Europe, like Madden, Sticko, guys like that who are just absolutely bonkers, do like an awesome job at their roles. It's just a question of putting them together in the right team. And if you're an NA org with unlimited funding, yeah, sure, just pick up a bunch of Europeans, fill out the spots. Rather than have to rely on automatic, you can pick up a number of AWPers that have become available recently, like Farlig, like those Bulgarians, Denislav, and I want to say Han. One of Han or Red Star's the main AWPer, well, used to be the main AWPer in Fiend, I've forgotten which one. There's even CIS options kind of available, so there's a lot of choice to make, but I want to stick NA. I do think the only issue you're going to have is figuring out exactly how to use automatic on the AWP to win events, but I think it'll work. Finally, Flint asks, what are your top 5 names for emo wannabes? As usual, Flint making great use of his question. We'll go with Tim, John, Jason, Blaze, and Morpheus. Oh, Neo, fuck it. Get rid of one of the normal names, put Neo in there. There you go. Yeah. Thanks for the questions. Keep them rolling in. This will be a private video that's shared on the Patreon, and then we'll eventually release it to the public in like mid-January when I'm starting actually recording the next set of questions, because fuck those YouTube plebs. Yeah. Keep the questions coming. Flint, make your questions more interesting. Yeah. Thanks as always for supporting me. Special shout out to the top elite contenders. That's Laggoon XL, the £10 a month patrons. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Oh yeah, YouTube update. Quickly. I should have the demo of the week kind of end of year wrap up out. It's going to be a big thing, like thanking a bunch of people, essentially. And then I'm going to do the... There's more content coming that's like analytical. I've got things in the works for a prospect. I've got things in the works for a non-prospect. The non-prospects might have to come out soon because there's fewer dependencies. Make of that what you will. Goodbye.